Hello friends, and welcome back to another virtual story time with Miss Liz. Today, we're reading a story about missing someone. This story is specifically about the loss of a loved one and how we cope when they're no longer here with us. Today's story is also a tale from the native Ojibwe people. It's called The Forever Sky. It is by Thomas Peacock and it's illustrated by Annette S. This book has some really beautiful illustrations and I'm excited to read it with you. The Forever Sky by Thomas Peacock, illustrated by Annette S. and published by Minnesota Historical Society Press. One fall night, two brothers were lying in a meadow watching the stars. Nuko's spirit is there in the stars, began Nigani, the older boy. Uncle has told me. The past year, an illness had come to the village. It claimed several lives, including their grandmother, Nuko. Uncle said when Nuko's spirit left this world, it went there. He pointed toward the sky. I miss Nuko. I love her as big as the whole sky, said Nigani. Yes, the whole sky, said Binashin, the younger boy. After Nuko's passing, Uncle began taking Nigani to the meadow in the evenings. He had noticed how much the boy missed his grandmother. I will tell you stories so you know where she has gone, Uncle began. Maybe you will feel less sad, even though you will still miss her. The sky and stars all have stories, he said. This is how Nigani came to know about the sky. When you look up at the sky, you might see some beautiful things like stars, the moon, even planets, and other beautiful things. You can imagine this is what Nigani and his uncle saw when they looked at the sky, and it was even more beautiful then. When you are older, Uncle will bring you here and teach you as well. We need to know the stories, said Nigani to his brother. Why? Asked Binashe. So when we are uncles, we can teach them to our nieces and nephews. So they will teach their nieces and nephews. And in that way, the stories will go on forever. The boys lay quietly for a long time, looking up at the sky full of stars. Then Nigani spoke. The stars are too many to count. And indeed they are. Look at them all. And the sky is so big that it goes on forever. That is why we call it Gazige Gizig, the forever sky. Gazige Gizig, this is a phrase in the Ojibwe language. And I had to practice it many times to try and get it right because it is not a language that I speak. Gazige Gizig, the forever sky. Nigani told Binashe more of what he had learned, how the stars form shapes of different spirits, animals, and things that live in the sky during each of the seasons. A moose, a panther, a fisher, a loon and a crane, a sweat lodge, a bather, and sweating stones. The spirit of Wintermaker, the hole in the sky, Wenabuzo, who was the great teacher of the Ojibwe. If you can look up here in the sky, you see some drawings because people often imagine that the stars make pictures in the sky. Sort of like how you might look up and see pictures in the clouds. You can also connect the dots between stars and make pictures. See, here is a moose. Let's see what's going to happen next. Do you see the path of stars across the sky? That is the path of souls, the Milky Way. That is the path Nuko followed to the spirit world. The path leads to the path of souls, and that is where Nuko's spirit is. Everyone who has passed is there, and all who are there are happy. Now, the Milky Way, the path of souls that they talk about in this book, that's a real thing. We can't always see it from where I live in Philadelphia because it's too bright and the sky is not something that we can see fully from where I am. But there are places where you can see the Milky Way yourself. For many nights, the boys returned to the meadow, and one special night, they stayed very late. That night, a beautiful show of lights filled the sky. These are called the Northern Lights. The Northern Lights, began Nagani, are the spirits of all our relatives who have passed on. Do you see them? He asked. Yes, I do, said Binashe. And what are they doing? Asked Nagani. I think they are dancing, said Binashe. And that is what they were doing. If you go to certain places in the world, especially very far up north, sometimes you can see these beautiful rainbow lights dancing in the sky. That is another real thing that we often don't get to see, but it is completely amazing. If you're curious, ask your grown-up to search for you on the internet, the Northern Lights, so you can see pictures and videos of it for yourself. It is very amazing. All right, back to the story. The boys watched their relatives dancing high above them, high above the meadow. Each night, said the older boy, the spirits take turns leading the dance. Sometimes the dance is led by babies and young children. And the boys imagined it. Here they are imagining the lights dancing as spirits of their ancestors and family members. And sometimes the dance is led by those who were missing an arm or a leg during their lives on earth, or were blind or could not hear while they lived on earth. In the spirit world, all see, all hear. No one is missing arms or legs. And the boys imagined it, a place where everybody was made whole again. And sometimes the dance is led by warriors. Warriors are not just people who go to war. Warriors are all people who do good things. They visit the sick. They hunt and fish and give food to the hungry. They become mothers and fathers to children who are without parents. And the boys imagined it. I love that idea of a warrior as someone who does good things, even if it's not fighting, as we usually think of a warrior. Many nights, they returned to watch their relatives dance. Then came a very special night while they lay in the meadow. I know who is dancing tonight, said Binashe. I see her. Nuko was leading the dance along with all of the elders. And that night, they remembered Nuko's voice, almost as if she spoke to them. I miss you, she began, and I love you each as big as the sky. But I am happy here. My relatives who had passed on are here. My mother, my father, my grandparents and brothers and sisters, my aunties and uncles and cousins. Before leaving the meadow that night, the boys offered some asema, tobacco, as an offering. They thanked the Creator. And after that night, they were happy for their grandmother, even though they still missed her very much. Several nights later, they brought their mother and father out to the meadow. They all lay on their backs and looked up into the forever sky. And they waited and waited and waited. Here are their feet as they're looking up from the meadow into the beautiful sky. And then, can you see, began Binashe, up in the sky, beyond the Milky Way, there is our Nuko. Yes, said Mother, she is happy. Then Uncle spoke, and a whole story was in his words. She is a star. She is the northern lights. At night, she dances. And here is the family looking up at the forever sky. And that, my friends, is the end. I love this story about missing someone and finding a connection with them even though they're no longer here. In a way, they are, as long as they're in your mind and in your heart. Now, in the back of this book, you'll see a glossary of all of the words that we learned in this book. Asema is Ojibwe for tobacco. Benashe is Ojibwe for bird. That is the younger brother's name. Gazige Gizig is the forever sky, the universe. Nigani is to lead. That's the name of the older brother. Nuko is shortened. It's a name for Nukomis, which means grandmother. So they called their grandmother Nuko. Like you might call your grandmother grandma or nanny. Some people have special names for those folks in their lives. And finally, Wenabuzo, the great teacher of the Ojibwe. We learned all of these Ojibwe words in this book, but there is a lot more to learn. I'm thankful for you all reading this book with me today. I hope you enjoyed learning about the forever sky, and I will see you tomorrow for more great books. Thanks for watching.